Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's beginning to look a lot like 2022.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Packers, Bears, and Lions fans all crashing out on Twitter over this win. That's how you know it was a good one.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan from the Wide Left Substack. I am reporting live from Canada, where they still don't actually get football all that much.
Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. Vikings undefeated when I go to a game this year, because that's how that works.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talks Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Welcome in to another Victory Monday edition of the Minnesota Football Party. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving weekend. Again, I'm Sam Ekstrom. You met the Lukes, you met Arif. We do this every Monday and Thursday, and today we react to another Minnesota Vikings victory, this one in dramatic fashion, 23-22. We will have every X factor from the Vikings win. We'll discuss the increasing comparisons between this team and the 2022 team. Monday's nerdy stats, everybody's favorite segment, plus the playoff scenarios getting juicier by the week as the Vikings sit at 10-2, one game back in the NFC North. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And a reminder, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first watch or listen. And if it's a listen, get us on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. That's where the audio of this show is found. Luke Inman, the postcaster general, you weren't on the postcast yesterday because you were in the stadium. Interesting game to go to, I would imagine, because we had lethargy, we had booze, and then I imagine in the fourth quarter, that crowd was on fire. Talk us through the in-stadium experience, 23-22, Vikings win.
Well, don't forget the best part. When you got Xavier Rhodes out there blowing the gala horn, you know you're in for a treat. Actually, it's funny, if I'm being totally honest. Half the people in the stands looked a little confused, like, wait, is that Xavier Rhodes out there? Some people, like the novice fan, like some people are like, they didn't even know he was retired. But you start the game with those two Aaron Jones fumbles, not one, but two. Everybody got a little grumpy right out the gate. Kyler was
a couple
fantastic,
boos
man.
on TV after
already.
that one, like leaking out.
Like people are still kind of leaking into the stadium during that first one. But I got to say, Matt, Kyler was fantastic. Having watched Kyler live in 2022, I went to the Vikes Cardinals game in 2022, and then seeing him yesterday, he just looked like a different guy. He looked like a real NFL quarterback. He was out there making some big boy throws, smart with the ball, making good decisions. The throw that really stuck out to me, the one to Michael Wilson with Byron Murphy draped all over him, that was fantastic. Just from my vantage point, the Marvin Harrison touchdown was a nice ball. But then you add in the scrambling ability, creating with his legs. You add in a guy like James Conner, and that I must have woken up last night at least 3 times having flashbacks to Trey McBride catching a wide open, just quick out pass for a first down. That was so maddening sitting in the stands after about the 6-1. You really just got to sit there and see like why the Cardinals have kind of taken on this little bit new identity, like right from the jump. Like first quarter, it's like, oh, we might be in for a long day. This is not the 2022 Cardinals that some of those fans remember. It's a good football team. So yeah, Vikes offense wasn't doing much, right? No big splash plays for the crowd to kind of feed off of and get into for the most part. So I guess all in all, like early on, pretty low key, boring game from a spectator standpoint. That first half kind of frustrating for some fans, if we're being honest. And then, the offense stalled out the first few drives in the second half. That's when the Boo Birds really started to come out a few times. That's when they really got loud. But for me, it was just like watching the whole time, just watching the way the game was kind of taking shape. It really felt like, even with basically no offensive spark for the most part, for most of that game, it still felt like they were going to have a chance to win at the end if the defense could just keep holding on and keep them out of the end zone. And fast forward, you get the pick from Byron Murphy. Now the crowd's really ramped up again. There was 3 throws from Sam Darnold, just from my vantage point, like being elevated up in the stands, almost having that like all 22 kind of perspective. One to JJ for a first down where it looked like it was going to get picked off.
Yeah.
There was a Cardinal DB right in his hip pocket, and everybody, when he threw the ball, was like, oh, no, don't do that. And then, obviously, JJ comes away with it for a first down. There was another one he layered to JJ. It was early fourth quarter. I want to say 14 and change fourth quarter, in between 3 guys for a big play. And then there was one to Jordan Addison. But these are all later on, fourth quarter, maybe early third quarter. Watching those live, though, in the moment, like with my vantage point, with how much was kind of on the line at the time, too, like we got to start putting together something here. It's getting close to do or die time. All 3 of those were kind of wow throws in my book, just seeing them live in the moment. So defense obviously ramped up in the second half a little bit more, forces 2 turnovers. The Grenard strip sack was huge, obviously. That really got the crowd. I mean, if they weren't already ramped up, I mean, that was about the loudest the stadium was after that Grenard strip sack. And they finally just started getting home a little bit more, too. That was super frustrating, too, by the way. Lack of pressure on Kyler for most of the game. 0 sacks until that strip sack, I believe. And then, last kind of note, I couldn't believe they went for the field goal at the end. I don't know how many people watching the game really understood like how huge that moment and decision was. But I thought for sure they'd go for the win or pin us back, right, if they don't get it. And as soon as they kick the field goal, I look at the clock, a little over 2 minutes. It just felt like it was a foregone conclusion. Darnold was at least minimum, the way he kind of had started ramping up that whole fourth quarter, he was at least going to put them in a position to have a, somewhat dramatic finish, I guess.
Have a shot.
Well, have a shot.
Yeah, it felt like Greg Olson was trying to like bring this up, and maybe I'm misremembering the broadcast.
No, he was all over it. He was all over it.
Yeah, he was doing the like you'd rather be up 3 than 6.
Yeah, which was cool. But it felt like it kind of got walked over just the way, because maybe it's just how fast it happened. But like it felt like it kind of got walked over when he was trying to explain, like, hey, this decision doesn't actually make a ton of sense when you think about it. But yeah, no, it definitely is like a very confusing moment when the Cardinals managed to get, because Gannon has been, otherwise a really good coach, like much better than I thought he would be, based off of the evidence I had available to me when he was hired, which is the Twitter video when he was hired, which, that's pretty good evidence. But yeah,
that's ironclad.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job of managing the team, improving a defense that had like these weird talent issues and stuff like that. And so I don't know, I kind of expected them to just kind of manage that area of the game a little bit better. And maybe that was expecting a little bit too much, but like certainly, that was like a pivot point of the game that like you mentioned, Luke, it seems like that kind of invigorated the crowd a little bit.
100%. Yeah. And again,
like, whoa, that
stuff happens so fast when you're there. And again, you don't have the broadcast to kind of break down the situation. I mean, you really got to pay close attention to the down and distance and the time. There's so many different variables going on when you're there in the actual stadium watching live. But for me, it was just like, okay, you could tell how huge of a moment that decision was, and as soon as they kicked the field goal, I was like, okay, we're gonna have a chance. So, but kind of first 3 quarters, honestly, like a C- from a fan's perspective. Fourth quarter and the ending, A+. I mean, great game. My biggest takeaway:
Sammy
Cardinals
Darts
are a
came
good football
alive.
team.
Cardinals are legit. You know
Cardinals
what
are
this felt
good.
like?
That's a
this
good
felt
team,
like
man.
we like to compare games to other games. This was week 3, 2022 against Detroit, where the Vikings sleptwalked for 3.5-ish quarters.
KJ Osborne game winner.
And they got back-to-back touchdowns at the end. KJ Osborne game winner with a bad game management decision by Campbell mixed in there. I think he went for a field goal up 3. I
think he went for a controversial fourth, no?
That's a good memory. I don't remember that part.
He tried a really long field goal to go up 6 and missed the field goal and gave the Vikings great field position, which they cashed in on right away. But it felt
so
like
uncharacteristic for him now that we have all of this,
I know.
Years of information on him now.
That was like
what is it about the Vikings making these guys kick?
Experience.
Yeah. That was it was a terrible decision by Gannon. I think awful. I mean, you are sacrificing the chance to clinch the game, to win the game outright with a conversion there, and in exchange, the Vikings have to go like 65 yards either way. Either they go 65 yards from the 5 to get in field goal range, or they go 65, 70 yards from the 30 to win the game, right? Like on the touchdown drive, which they did. And it was one play. It was like the crosser to Addison. They already were like in scoring range. It happened so fast. Great drive.
And recall the 4th and 7 in field goal range that they would have kicked.
Yes.
If they were like the exact scenario came up where this would have been a tie game, but they were like, they had to go for you never would go for that 4th and 7, but then they hit Justin Jefferson on like that little stick route.
Braun, X factors from the win, from the game. Who would you pinpoint? Because I don't know if this is like a game with a lot of heroes. Even in the game ball video, they're trying.
This is Jalen Redmond,
Byron Murphy. You played for the Cardinals,
and a couple interceptions. Okay,
Shaq Griffin had a pick at the end. Like who would get your
game
balls?
Let's not valorize the Shaq Griffin pick on 4th down.
Okay, he did great man coverage on that one.
Yeah, okay.
He ran the route for him.
But there's great coverage. What I'm just saying is it's fine if he had not kept his hands on the ball. Is all I'm saying.
Sure, yeah.
I mean that
exactly the same thing.
There.
But you got to catch that then. Like you got.
I get it. Like I don't hold it against him. I'm just saying when we're awarding game balls, I'm not the pick itself. Like the coverage, fine. The pick itself is not going to factor in.
Yeah,
to my
that's for him
balls.
and him alone.
Yeah, and he should cherish
Shaq
it.
was like, has Shaq gotten one yet? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
It's Shaq time.
Shaq got one yet.
Right. I'm surprised that in that game ball video, Jonathan Grenard didn't get one. Like I can't stop thinking about the moment.
One?
No, what? Going off the field after play 80. Dude. Chasing down Kyler Murray and totally gassed. 132nd timeout and he's back in there making plays again. Grenard kind of took over the whole thing on that last series, that last defensive series. And I also just want to mention, maybe not an X Factor person, but I feel like an X Factor thing. When the Vikings started figuring out that they have to throw fast against the blitz, everything opened up and they just couldn't stop scoring.
Well, they just started going.
Yeah. Don't wait for post routes to go open. There are 7 people coming at you and you have 6 blockers, dude. Mm-hmm. They couldn't figure that. They could not figure that out for 2.5 quarters.
Okay, I will say this though. That wasn't entirely on play design or on Darnold. I will say the miscommunication up front in pass protection, where for example, CJ Ham was not following most dangerous man philosophy and taking on a B gap blitz instead of A gap.
Sometimes, but he was still 2-on-1. There was still going to be somebody.
No,
there was no hot.
But
what are we doing?
That is an issue. There's still going to be somebody, but the whole point of the quarterback takes the unblocked rusher, which is just how that works, is that usually that guy has the longest path. And so you have another quarter of a second, which is mostly what you need to get rid of the ball in time, assuming that there's a hot route. And it just felt like the offensive line and the pass protection unit in general was kind of struggling with identifying and creating long paths for unblocked rushers. Mac Wilson, primarily, is what I'm talking about. That guy had a great game.
Yeah.
I thought the Cardinals played a masterpiece of a football game for 3 quarters. I mean, I thought Kyler, and I think Kyler's stats are absolutely so much worse looking than he actually played. Yeah. His accuracy was incredible. His decision making on when to run, his elusiveness, didn't take a sack until the most important series of the game, didn't throw a pick until 2 of the last 3 series of the game. That was 3 quarters of completely in control football. And he gets the L. But I would also not want to go to Arizona and play them in the first round. I don't think that's
I do think the fourth quarter collapse on the Cardinals. Like if you listen to Locked On Cardinals, and to be fair, Clancy's kind of a doomer, but if you go listen to Locked On Cardinals right now, he's ripping Kyler. Saying like good game, but those 2 interceptions in the second half and totally falling apart. The Cardinals had a collapse that would make the 2023 Vikings blush.
Yes, I don't know how much I'd put that on Kyler. Obviously, that first.
I don't think I would, but that's his demon.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, that first interception was bad. I will grant everyone that one. But but aside from that, I mean, it was pretty outstanding football.
Yeah, he was hitting tight windows.
Dude, he looked like an NFL quarterback, I'm telling you.
And it's the mandate of God, switch sides, because then Sam Darnold started layering in the most beautiful throws you've ever seen and working the pocket. Playing insane Josh Allen football. What? Yeah. Where was this?
That's a great way to put it, because a lot of times Darnold's tight window throws are over the middle in between defenders, which is impressive, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when you get the tight window throws on these outs,
those are insane, man.
Crazy.
You live and die by it, because this is what we knocked him for, right? Oh, he's taken a few too many chances on these tight window throws. He's got to be more discerning. He can't force it to Justin Jefferson. Well, it works both ways, because look what happened. He started throwing tight window throws to Justin Jefferson.
Look, we punched the ticket. We got to take the ride. That's
Yep. Here we are.
We're committed.
We're on the roller coaster, and the thing doesn't go down all the way.
Yeah. But you're going up. You're already going up.
Hey, we had that philosophy on defense already. That's the way this works now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what it is. It's because there's a lot of precarity on defense, especially after Stephon Gilmore got hurt, and Kyler Murray was Fabian Moreau. That's a fictional character.
Oh my God! Yes.
People were so confused. People were like, "Is Andrew Booth out there? Or what is going on?"
It took me a minute too.
It was so confusing.
I think that given his resume, for the most part, Moreau was doing okay until the second defensive pass interference penalty, and then he got
that one was so bad. That big long one,
the Zay Jones one, was that one?
Yeah. That set him up with first and I think that set him up with first and goal.
Was that the Marvin Harrison touchdown on the play immediately afterward? Yeah, on Fabian Moreau. Yeah, and then he just it collapsed, right? But I mean, that's like Luke said, that is the philosophy that the way that you have set up the defense is that an injury to a defensive back is going to produce these kinds of outcomes, because you're putting a lot on each of the individual defensive backs if the pass rush is not getting home quickly, right? And it wasn't getting home because Kyler was doing some magic stuff out there, right? So there's a lot of precarity on offense, a lot of precarity on defense. Both are fairly reliant on, I guess I'd call them big play philosophies. On offense, actual big play philosophies. On defense, kind of the spirit of big play philosophies, which is that you are praying for high volatility outcomes. And, some games the offense bails out the defense. We've seen that a little bit. A lot of games the defense has bailed out the offense. And some games, hey, the Vikings have 2 losses for a reason,
Fabian Moreau, other than the second pass interference penalty, I'm actually not that mad at his game. I mean, he was up against Marvin Harrison.
Backup
Jr.
got picked on. What are you going to
do? Two out of 5. Harrison caught 2 out of 5 when targeted against Moreau. The touchdown was a great throw, great catch, not awful coverage. And the first pass interference call was a terrible call. It was a great
the crowd was livid. The crowd was livid on that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was just good enough for me to win my Marvin Harrison receptions bet. And I really appreciate him for threading that needle.
What happened to Gilmore, by the way?
Hamstring.
Hammy. Okay.
KOC said they hoped he might have been able to come back, which maybe means it's a minor thing. But when they deal with starters,
hamstrings can always be weird.
Yeah, especially veterans. I don't know. They almost always.
The problem is we're not going to get a ton of clarity with the injury report this week, right? Because he's a veteran. They're just even if he was
Yeah.
fine, they would rest him, right?
He's
So-
not practicing this week.
Yeah, he's just not practicing. Yeah. So, well, who knows?
Yeah, and I think we see Moreau, if not in a full-time role next week, it would be like a rotational role with Gilmore to kind of take a little stress off of him if
Maybe.
he's not 100%.
Real quick,
You might see
before we-
more like triple safety. You might see more Theo Jackson. Like they can walk in with a plan now. They walked in with a man coverage plan. Like they were like, we don't respect your receivers.
Yeah.
We're just going to man them up, which is
That
wild
was
against Kyler Murray, by the way.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, not just Kyler Murray, which I agree that's a crazy thing to do against somebody who has the run threat and the extend play threat. But like
Right.
Marvin Harrison is like, they're not on the same page all the time, Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray. But like the thing that he is good at, he is getting open. Right?
You give up
Like,
9 for 91 to the tight end, man. Like that was maybe not the move. But
the first drive, all three including the blocking tight
Tip
end, from
Ryman,
Illinois.
the rookie.
all three tight ends got a
right.
reception on the first drive.
Jeez.
Like,
and for such a zone team normally, like that's the broadcast said it, Luke. This was the most man coverage they've ever played. So that's a very interesting choice, right? But then you get caught with that game plan prepared, and now you got to put in a backup.
Now you're
They're not going to be. He's not going to be caught one-on-one if he has to play. Is kind of what I'm saying. You can walk in with a lot of ways to protect him better.
We
Yeah,
need
good
way
point.
more Greg Olsen games, man. This guy rules.
I'm
The
jealous.
difference
I'm
between
jealous. I
Olsen and
missed out.
everybody else, it's not even
And
close.
Joe Davis.
Yeah,
Joe
After the energy of the grain, great.
Joe Davis, is
great partnership. Yeah.
And Joe Davis identifies, and he's so perceptive. Like he sees things that are difficult to see and seamlessly incorporates them into the call of the play. It's really impressive stuff mechanically from him. Inman, you were sitting on a point there a minute
Well,
ago.
I just wanted to bring up and ask you guys, because KOC, we were joking about the game balls. He did give one to Jalen Redmond. And when you're there watching, it's so hard to watch the trenches, even more so than it is on the broadcast without going back. But did you guys notice anything stick out as far as Jalen Redmond? Because anytime a young guy starts to stick out, it's obviously encouraging and kind of exciting. So I know that was one of Luke's guys in training camp as well.
Yeah, well, he had that crazy preseason, and so it was like, wait, this guy he's got to make the team, right?
Yeah.
And then he did.
Just fun to see.
And pretty cool for him to get that in place of Taki Taimani, who really had that kind of backup Harrison Phillips role too. But I think a lot of the big plays he made, it was kind of slashing or like stepping with the zone. So like the lineman would like try to zone block, step to the side like that, and Redmond would just take a faster step and then be able to get penetration that way. And then just,
He
kind
was
of
like,
hit strong, be on the
I've
half
seen
man.
this in the UFL before.
Yeah, the
fool me.
Arlington Renegades
Can't fool
trained
me.
me for this moment. But yeah, just a good first step. Good first step gets you in.
Love it.
His average depth of tackle was negative 2.5 yards. The only player on the
So
Vikings
sick.
defense
Wow.
with a negative average
Jeez.
depth of
He really
tackle.
showed up and got like 2 TFLs and then like dipped. Like
Yeah,
that
he
was all
like,
he did.
Peace.
He had a defensive
nine
Nick
run
Mullins
plays.
game.
I'm out.
Yeah, 9 run plays he was in for, and 2 of them were splashy. Let's pause and then return with the debates about the bad win. Are the Vikings winning too many bad games like 2022? That conversation's getting louder. I saw an interesting stat
Weird
from Alec
phrasing
Lewis
for
as well about one-score games that might illuminate this a little bit more. It's coming up next on the Minnesota Football Party. A new partner here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's Ice Shaker. And if you're like me, you probably haven't finished your holiday shopping yet. And I've got the perfect item for you to get the passionate sports fan in your life. Ice Shaker is officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB. So you got the gamut covered of sports fan. It's the ideal gift. Good stocking stuffer. The Gronkowski brothers use it. Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They've changed the game with workout bottles. This is a gift for the big sports fan in your life. IceShaker.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL. Save 25% at checkout. Third-party tested. It holds ice for 30-plus hours. Customizable. Send us your logo or check out the custom shop to customize your favorite bottle. Turnaround time, a mere 3 to 5 business days. The agitator works as a strainer as well, makes it a very solid tailgating cup to mix drinks. Order your team-branded bottles today at IceShaker.com. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. We're also brought to you by BetterHelp today. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? wrap up in a blanket, get a mug of hot chocolate, watch a movie. That's a good way to spend the month of December. It's not too bad. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort as well, some comfort that never goes away, even when the seasons change. Holiday season provides a lot of hubbub, a lot of family gatherings, a lot of logistics. Travel can be stressful. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Make sure to check out our full lineup here at Locked On Sports Minnesota, and please subscribe. Braun Johnson Show on Tuesdays. We'll be back on Thursday for the next live Minnesota football party, previewing Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. So the stat from, I think it was Alec Lewis, there have been 388 games played in the NFL this year. 307 of them have been decided by 8 points or less, a.k.a. the one-score game. And the broadcast yesterday, again.
That stat sounds pretty nerdy, Sam.
Yeah, are we maybe in...
Analytics fans rejoice. It's time to get educated.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
With the nerdy stat of the day.
There we go.
Bam.
Kevin O'Connell, also, by the way,
time.
just behind John Madden.
Game time.
One score winning percentage.
Yeah, just behind John Madden. How crazy is that?
That's a great nugget. So 307 of 388.
They're like 24-9 on these under KOC. But the regression will come on the next one, I promise.
Yeah, I promise. I'm curious about the one-score games. Is this the most we've had through 388? Like, I have no context really for this.
That feels like a lot. Like 3/4 of the games,
like
one
a
score.
lot.
Like, that's crazy, right?
It does feel like a lot.
Surely.
But like, maybe we just don't remember all the crappy one-score games from like previous years. Is like the thing that I'm trying.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't get me wrong. We had like the last month of football. I think there was like maybe 1 week where it was just bad games, where it was all bangers, right? Like, oops, all bangers. We had a ton of amazing games over the weekends. And so, it wouldn't shock me if actually this was not just a bunch of one-score games, but also a bunch of one-score games that were genuinely good and not like 3-6 affairs that had like 8 picks and they were all because of quarterback sloppiness. But yeah, to get into this question about regression in one-score games, Greg Olson was also really kind of interesting on this one, and I think I might agree. Maybe not as much, maybe not to the degree that Greg Olson was saying it, but he was pointing out, like, yeah, most of the time with one-score games, you're going to get regression, but I do think that there is something here about coaching and time management and, player management, load management that, separates some teams from others, that gives them more advantages in one-score games. He was like making this argument. And I think that like one of the reasons that one-score games have historically regressed may no longer be as applicable in the modern NFL, which is something I think, the analytics community is not wonderful about when they don't realize kind of like how the NFL may update and change their information and how that might change their priors, which is that we are seeing a greater separation in coaches who have good versus bad clock management. It used to be all of the coaches had bad clock management. And so one-score games just kind of were regression, right? But now that we've got some coaches that could be good at clock management and some that may not be, some that are good at fourth down management, some that are good at, the down 8 test, right? Like, some are good at that, some may not be that good, and so that might separate some coaches. Now, I don't think that is the reason the Vikings have this astounding record. I think it's one of many reasons, and I think another reason is variance and luck, right? Like, the Vikings did not cause Jonathan Gannon to set up for the field goal, right? Or cause Chad Ryland to miss the kick earlier, right? Although, if we're talking about that, Parker Roma also missed a kick. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, right? Like, luck plays a role here, and I don't want to ignore that, but it may play a smaller role for the Kevin O'Connell Vikings than it does for a typical team in kind of this one-score bliss that the Vikings have found themselves in.
This game would be the exception to the rule a bit because Luke Braun, you've been on the win probability train all year. Most of these one-score wins,
that too,
they're all like backdoor fake. Yeah,
backdoor Vikings with an 80, 90%.
This is not
win
one of them.
probability.
Yeah, not that this one's different. This one, the Vikings kind of.
This was the inverse.
Yeah.
But, no,
it's funny that we're having this conversation after yesterday's game because yesterday's game did feel like a lot of the things.
Yeah, because they finally had one that felt fake. Because the rest of them didn't feel fake. They felt backdoor, like, oh, I guess that's a one-score win, but they were killing them the whole time.
But
and then
this
they
is
needed
not
like a touchdown, a 2, and an onside, and another touchdown and a 2. Like like the Colts game. Like, no, you kicked the crap out of them in that second half, and that game was done. Like that, I think with regression, right? Regression is the idea that if you win a bunch of coin flips, you can't expect to keep winning those coin flips. So you have to remove the effect of those coin flips from your projections moving forward. You'll have more accurate projections. And I think it's a lot of bit oversimplified to look at every game that landed between 8 points, more or less, and say, well, those ones must have been decided by luck. Because they weren't. The Packers game was not decided by luck. And I would argue that luck was maybe more of a reason that it even came within a score. One score, right? I think with average luck, the Vikings probably would have won that Packers game more handily. Even in this game, you have this like ridiculous like tipped conversion thing that felt straight out of last year. That goes against the Vikings, right? You have an onside kick that goes against the Vikings. You want to talk about something that you probably can't rely on happening again? I don't think there's going to be another onside kick on the Vikings again, and I don't think I'm on much of a limb saying that. So,
but now that you've said it, this feels like a playoff loss.
Well, I've spit in the face of God. I've done it before. But like, if we want to if we want to ask the question, what impact is luck having? And I think the Vikings have had like above average total luck in terms of like fumbles or whatever. We can do that. But if you want to go game by game with all these one scores and ask, what mean does this regress to? Because regression to the mean doesn't mean everybody's going to go back to 500. You're going to regress to your own mean, to your own median performance. What is that for the Vikings? I think it's a pretty good one.
That reminds me of that Reddit post on Patrick Mahomes. Like, well, if you regress all of his stats to average, he doesn't look that good. And the guy was totally serious, too.
Was he really? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Only on Reddit.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But no, I think that's a good point. Ty Shelter over at 538 a couple of years ago evaluated this with regards to the Detroit Lions. So he's a Lions guy. And he decided, like, he made, I think, a really powerful move that we should adopt a little bit more often, which is instead of that, we should take a look at in the final 5 minutes of games, how many of them are within 40 to 60% win probability, and treat those as if they are the coin flip games when we are looking at regression. I forgot the results of that. That was like a couple years ago, and so it's not that relevant now. But that is a framework we could use because for the Vikings, a lot of these games that are one-score games, they had like 99% win probability heading into the final 2 minutes or something like that. Like these were not, like Luke said, coin flip games in the same way. And I mean, even back, like when we talk about the 2022 season, a lot of those one-score games were also backdoor one-score games, right? Like the Bears game. Like, congrats on your free touchdown, man. Now we have the ball, right? So I think that's another element of this conversation too.
So in
also
like,
too,
the
it's just like I pulled out 2022 just real quick, and there was so many like late game heroic stuff too in 2020. The Bills game, right? JJ's miraculous catch. Josh Allen fumbles at the end. I mean, I went to the Jets game. I think they won 27-22, something like that. Very close. The Colts game was ridiculous, obviously, on so many levels. The Giants game, they needed like a 61-yard or whatever it was from Greg Joseph to win it. Like, they just don't feel – and again, I know we're talking about this after yesterday's game, and some of those things don't match up, but it just feels like 2022, you needed these, like, late game crazy heroics to happen. This year, to both Arif and Luke's point, I mean, for the majority of these wins, they've been in the win probability in the 90%, if not even better. So
it's the other team that's been needing heroics and has gotten 6 of the 7 things that they need, but they haven't gotten all of the things that they need.
Right. And this is the NFL. I mean, all these teams are on any given week, like we've seen, are pretty good, right? So that actually doesn't surprise me too much to hear you say the stat,
I heard
307 games.
I heard actually the only reason the Vikings are ever in a bad position is because they don't try hard enough and they don't put in enough effort.
You got to be better.
They don't have any
81 plays on
better.
defense, man.
I can't. I'm sorry.
That's
I was
insane.
losing my mind at that. I don't know, Sam, if you saw this, but like, I was
Arish, we're counting a Twitter argument, everyone. This is for context.
Drink, right? Yeah, like yeah. But no, it's just like I was like some tweet, right? I was just like, hey, there's some communication problems on offense or whatever, and someone was like, yeah, I was just like, there's no passion on the line right now, and it's like you can make the argument that KOC is getting out coached or whatever, right? That's fine, or what, but like. It was coming off of like the 1 4th down conversion where the Cardinals caught the Vikings, unawares, right? Where like the Vikings were still kind of standing around a little bit, and the guy just
quick snapped.
Yeah, and the guy seemingly assumed that was happening the whole game for some reason, and he's like, yeah, and then like three different people were making this argument to me, which is incredible. But like someone else is like, yeah, they're just here for the paycheck and not for the wins. Like at the time, the team is 9-2, like. You can easily paycheck your way to 500. That's crazy. You have to put in some work to turn these games into 9, especially, this Vikings team that was projected to get 6.5 wins before the season, right? 9-2 is a wild thing to back yourself into.
What is their passion grade on PFF? I'm trying to find it.
So you'll find it under you go to special teams and you go for heart. Is kind of where
sort by heart.
But you gotta have the premium. You gotta have the premium package though.
Right? Yeah.
Oh shoot.
Anyway, we're in the nerdy stat scenario. So my nerdy stat is, I'll be honest, I didn't research it. Someone DM'd it to me saying, "Hey, Arif, I know you don't like to research nerdy stats. Appreciate it." Eli I gotta shout this guy out. Actually, that would be rude of me not to. Eli.nflforecaster.com over on Blue Sky. Forecaster spelled without an E at the end. So NFL forecast and then R like the program. Great. So he looked at the number of total yards produced by a receiver. I talked about this 2-3 weeks ago. Total yards produced by a receiver when including all penalties, not just DPI, but all penalties induced by the receiver, holding, illegal contact, etc. And added it all up. So Jamar Chase obviously leads the league in receiving yardage. Justin Jefferson is very close behind. But when you include that, including, I think it was like a 35-yard pass interference penalty in this game. Yeah. Justin Jefferson leads the league in penalty-induced yardage plus receiving yardage still, or once again, and has 100.2 receiving plus penalty yards per game. And the only receiver that has more per game than Justin Jefferson is Nico Collins, who's only played 8 games this year. And so, yeah, I feel like, so we've talked a lot about Justin Jefferson's impact. Luke wrote a piece that, again, you should pay me to read over at wildlife.football about Justin Jefferson's gravity. A lot of people discussed it last week. They were late to it. Luke was early. About, how Justin Jefferson's getting doubled and tripled and that's helping Jordan Addison, stuff like that. That's all true. Right? His on-field impact is measured by more than the yards he produces. But then on top of that, he is also leading the league in offensive advancement from the receiver position, right? And I think like this guy is so good. It's hard. I don't know what else to say.
It's just, like the most ho-hum 90-yard games I've ever seen.
We're so used to it because this is year 5 of this.
Yards. Yeah.
Quiet,
99 yards and another 30 plus in DPI, whatever.
We're going to pause and then return with a conversation about the top of the NFC, because when you're a 10-win team and it's December, you start scoreboard watching, you start talking scenarios, and do the Vikings stack up with the Eagles and the Detroits? Despite this conversation we've had, okay, the Vikings aren't frauds. How do they stack up with the big boys? It's coming up on the Minnesota Football Party. We will also update our FanDuel Week 13 bets, because we use FanDuel. You should use FanDuel. Get in the NFL action, NBA, NHL, college football playoff coming up. That's going to be a ton of fun. If you're a new customer, if you've never done FanDuel before, check it out. You can bet $5. If you win that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. Not that difficult to find a good money line, win a $5 bet. And when you get those 150, you can cash in on all your hunches, whether it's before the game or during the game. Great live wagering options at FanDuel as well. FanDuel.com, the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started. Bet 5, get 150 if that $5 bet wins at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Hopefully your hunch was not the Vikings on the spread yesterday, because that did not cover. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best way to get tickets in your area.
Game Time.
Whether it's sports, concerts, comedy, thank you, Arif, theater, and so much more. Game Time Picks is the curation feature that filters out the fluff.
Game
You only get
time.
the best deals, all-in pricing. Toggle it on so there's no hidden fees. Seat views, panoramic views from your seat, lowest price guarantee, and the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Our best ad read.
By far, without question, is the.
It's really great when we can just ruin whatever Sam's trying to do.
Yeah, that's. I feel like that was kind of the animating force behind this podcast.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm extremely flappable too. I'm easily thrown off.
Joe Buck.
Luke, yeah, not even close. Luke Inman. So I feel like the chasm is growing between the Vikings and the Lions, and probably the Eagles too. Now, if you look at DVOA, Vikings are actually ahead of the Eagles, which is kind of remarkable. But we're here now. We are in December. There are 4 games left before Week 18 when the Vikings and Lions play, maybe for the division. I asked Braun this question on the postcast yesterday. I'm going to ask you, number one, can the Vikings stack up and win this race to the finish with Detroit or Philadelphia? How do you feel about their prospects against those two heavyweights?
Well, they're definitely the heavyweights right now. Eagles have won, 7, if not 8 in a row. It's the defense, really, that is like just flipped a switch with Philly during this winning streak. I think they're allowing average on the last 8 wins, 17 points per game. So they look like a completely different team compared to the first month of the season. Obviously, the Lions, everybody's calling them the cream of the crop, if not the best team, not only in the NFC, the entire league right now. Can the Vikings stack up? Yeah, sure, absolutely they can. It just feels like if they don't end up winning this division and they end up being the 5 seed, let's just say, going on the road multiple times to a place like Arizona that we just saw. Now you got to go play that team to start things off in Arizona. You got to go beat a good team and then go do it again on the road. I think their chances, it feels like they're going to have a tough layout, let's just say. The blueprint is going to look drastically different. And unless they catch Detroit, which obviously we know what that looks like these last 4 games, and they can do that, certainly. But if they don't, boy, their chances of staying hot and going on a run on the road, which, by the way, they are 5-1, I want to say, on the road this year. So they've shown they can do it, right? They've shown they can do it. But the chances of going from that 1 seed and getting the bye, the difference, the contrast from the 1 seed getting the bye versus the 5 seed, and your entire path is on the road, is just remarkably more challenging. Now, we've seen teams do it. We've seen teams, get hot at the end as a 6 seed and go win the Super Bowl. I think the Packers did it, I want to say in 2007 with Rodgers. The Giants did it with Eli Manning versus the Patriots. So teams have done it. It's not impossible by any means, but there's such a stark contrast and difference between getting that 1 seed versus starting on the road as a 5 seed. Is it possible? Absolutely. I think this Vikings team, as we already talked about, is much different than the 2022 team. The way they're built, the defense especially, I think, is a huge difference when you look at the Ed Donatel defense in 2022 versus what Brian Flores can do. Nonetheless, having said that, the challenge would be quite difficult, and it would be a remarkable feat if they could go on a run as that 5 seed. Can they do it? Absolutely.
Yeah, here's what I've got on scenarios down the stretch because the 1 seed is like everything. I mean, that's unbelievably big. So, number one, clinching a playoff spot, just simply clinching a playoff spot, could happen next week. If you get the win,
win a couple games.
Cardinals lost, Rams lost, you're going to make the playoffs. Beating the Falcons,
you did one of the Cardinals or Rams to lose, and I think it's just the Rams because now the Vikings have a tiebreaker on the Cardinals.
Will Raggett said it was Cardinals. Was it Cardinals loss or the Rams loss, or was it both? Maybe it was or.
Is it both?
Check out the Will Raggett.
Beat the Falcons.
Tweet. I trust Will, but this is the Falcons game is big. Here's why: if you beat the Falcons, then you likely secure the tiebreaker over the Eagles. Because that would be a common opponent that the Eagles lost to. And there's a very good chance their conference record would be tied. So that is actually a pretty big game if you got into some kind of 3-way deal with the Lions and Eagles. Now, the Lions, it's going to be trickier. The Lions have to lose a game, I think.
You need Thursday night. You need the Packers Thursday night
to
have any hope of the division here.
You really do. Well, I mean, they could
rough.
lose.
And then the Vikings need to win their Week 17 game against the Packers instead of losing it like 40-3 like they always do.
Yeah. I mean, the Vikings almost have to win out, but the Lions have to lose a game before Week 18 because you lose the tiebreaker as it stands now.
Right.
They have to win one more than the Lions into Week 18 to make up that game back, and it needs to be like the right one.
Well, they play the Packers, Bears, Vikes, obviously. They play at San Francisco, which, that feels a lot different than it did 2 months ago. But they play the Bills as well. That's the one, right? Outside of the
Bills,
Packers game this Thursday. It's the Bills.
In Soldier, road division, always weird.
In Soldier, sure. Yeah.
Go Bills.
Yeah, go Bills.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, no. The Vikings are frauds. They have they have a top 5 record in the NFL, but they're 6th in DVOA.
They're going to regress.
It's real bad.
To only making the playoffs instead of making the playoffs.
It's bad. Fraud watch.
Fraud watch. 6.5 wins over under preseason. 6.5 wins. Fraud watch. 10 wins in December.
They're going to be the best 14 or the lowest seeded 14-3 team of all time and have a path of like Detroit off a bye if they get through the first round. Detroit off a bye and Philadelphia. Potentially to make a Super
Ask the
Bowl.
Chargers. It's tough to be the 5th seed, but that's the game.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like there is
winning the playoffs.
I feel like, and that's also true for the Lions, who, by the way, getting more and more and more banged up. But I do kind of feel like it's the Lions and everybody else. I don't know, but there's a lot of teams.
I don't understand them right now.
There's like the Eagles, Vikings, and Packers. I feel like they can go into Detroit and win a game. Will they be favored? Probably not, but it's not like you're going to circle that one as an L as if, it were the Panthers walking into Ford Field. Yeah, then you probably wouldn't take that game very seriously. But the way I see it, you get in the dance, you walk onto that field, it's 0-0, you can win that game. Nobody's going to be looking past that game. If you win one, then you get to go into another one 0-0, and you just got to string a couple together. And guess what? The Vikings have won 5 games in a row 2 different times. You got to put a winning streak together to win the Super Bowl, and they have proven that they can put together enough week after week after week after week and not be the kind of week-to-week proposition that they were for basically all of the Kirk Cousins era.
If you win the Super Bowl off of a series of 1-score games, they actually don't award it to you.
Nope. Yep.
Nope. It's real rough. I don't understand why that is, but
it goes to the same place the Ed Thorpe Trophy went to.
It becomes part of cursed lore. Yeah. So
it's actually aggregate point differential is who they give the Lombardi to.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And then they bury
the team
it with
that
a slab of bacon trophy.
beats somebody by 30 in the wild card and then loses by 1 in the divisional. That's the champion.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now, I can't believe I'm making these snarky comments when I was like on the other side of this like 3 weeks ago, but you just gotta win games.
Like after the fakest of all of them.
Right.
Like we can be honest, right? Like the Cardinals beat them up and down the field for 2.5 quarters.
Yeah.
And then you came back, you figured it out, right? The Cardinals collapsed. Cardinals didn't deserve to win this one more than the Vikings did, not after that collapse. Mm-hmm. But man, they got kind of smoked for a while.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be on the other side of it, where it's just like, took your win.
Yeah.
Peace out. No, but I mean, like the
Trail.
Vikings did play well at critical moments in the game, and obviously playing well at a critical moment versus a non-critical moment, that doesn't tend to repeat itself. You usually just play well when you play well, not in key moments when it's good for you. But like the Cardinals had a couple of opportunities to close out, so they didn't deserve the win anymore, right? Make your kicks, right? But the Vikings, I mean, Sam Darnold had a really good game. That's like I like rewarding that with wins. That's nice. It's better than when like Cousins was having all these good games. They just kept losing because someone kept deflecting his balls into picks.
A lot of deflected balls yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Sammy. One note, little nerdy stat: the Arizona Cardinals, since they've been based in Arizona, have never beaten the Vikings on Minnesota soil. 1977, when they were the St. Louis
Beautiful.
Cardinals, the last
My
time
goodness.
that they beat the Vikings in Minnesota.
The St. Louis Football Cardinals, which does not have the same ring as the New York Football Giants, if I'm being honest.
So the
It
Saint-
just doesn't.
so the St. Louis Cardinals existed in baseball and football simultaneously. That's
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
going
love
to the Cardinals game. Okay.
Huh?
all right.
I have a nerdy stat to sneak in as well.
Yep.
It's about Kirk Cousins if we want to look ahead. Kirk Cousins throws 4 interceptions yesterday. He's only done that one other time in his career. So that ties a career high. Can you guess what the other one is?
I feel like I should know this. It's not the
You'll
Giants.
never.
game. No, okay.
I don't. So I'm trying to remember.
Did he do it in a
happened
Vikings uniform?
with Minnesota? Was it Falcons in 20 or 21?
That was 3.
Oh, okay.
He's thrown 3 interceptions 6 times.
That's our guy.
I think the
4
Eagles
of those
game was-
were in a Vikings
Eagles
uniform.
game was 3. Eagles game was 3.
Eagles game
right?
was 3. There was a Packers meltdown week 17 game. The
Yeah.
Atlanta one you were talking
Classic
about.
one.
And
The
then
one where they figured out
2020
the boot zone.
Colts.
Yeah.
So we haven't
up in
guessed it yet.
Washington.
Yeah. So what is it? What's the 4?
It is his second season, week 4, at the Giants. They lost 45-14.
I said the Giants
Oh.
game. I'm just going to take it.
Yeah. Yeah, take the Super Bowl trophy too while you're
So
at it. Go ahead.
last week,
Take it all. Take it all.
he did something horrible that was more horrible than anything he did in a Vikings uniform.
Wild.
Take your worst Kirk Cousins memory. It was worse than that.
It wasn't because I had Chargers minus 1.5. So
Good segue.
I was
Good
so
segue.
close to taking the over in that game, by the way. So close. That was the difference between
man.
2-0 and 1-1 for me.
You
That was
did
like
okay.
the
So
last
close.
game I would have bet on. I had no idea what was going to go down. Chargers Falcons, that's like pure chaos energy.
yeah, I wanted a reason to watch.
The biggest smile ever. Yeah, I wanted a reason to watch.
Inman is in the clear. 2-0. He's 700 ahead of
Yeah, he
Arif
pulled
with
away.
a 2-0 week. Huge.
Yeah.
Arif's just basically even for the
I'm
year.
just
He's
1-1 the whole
$1,003.
time,
Just
dude.
1-1, solid, consistent.
I went
I am like
0-2.
losing $9 a week. It's crazy.
Sam, meanwhile, is up and down and leading in last.
All over. Hitting
Yo-yoing.
plus 450 bets one week, and then
Come sit in the $800 range where I've been for like a month and a half.
Yeah, I crashed back to earth with an 0-2 week. I lead Braun by $31 in third place. So,
$31. I might lose that over the course of the next 2 weeks.
oh, you will.
Riding the
No,
minimum.
you will. Not might. You will.
You will.
We'll be live Thursday to preview Vikings Falcons. Talk to Ron Johnson. We'll make our bets for week 14. Luke Inman, check him out on the postcast. Also after Timberwolves games, they play the Lakers tonight. Make sure to get in on that with Luke and Jack Borman. Arif Hasan, Wide Left Substack, Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings, and I'm Sam Ekstrom. Find me here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening on the Locked On Vikings audio feed. We will catch you next time on the Minnesota Football Party.